Hello, everyone. This week on the LIGO-India podcast, Listening to the Cosmos, we have with us Anna Watts. Anna Watts is Professor of Astrophysics at the University of Amsterdam. My name is Dibarati Chatterjee. I'm Associate Professor at the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics in Pune, in India. And I'm also Chair of Outreach for the LIGO-India project. So, Anna, a very warm welcome to the LIGO-India podcast. It's great fun to have you here with us. So Anna is an expert in neutron stars. I have known her for many years now, particularly in dense nuclear matter physics problems related to the neutron star interior. She has been an expert on violent dynamical events related to neutron stars like star quakes and thermonuclear explosions. And particularly, Anna has gained a lot of success and respect with her recent space telescope missions. Like she has been leading one of the teams working on NASA's NISA mission, the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, which has really created waves in the field of gravitational wave science as well as neutron star physics. You are also a member of the steering committee of NASA probe mission concept, STROBE-X, right, Anna, and the Dense Matter Scientific Working Group for the proposed Chinese-European EXTP mission. So, Anna, do you want to say something more about your current and past passion in physics?
Sure. So, my main research interest is in neutron stars because they're just so weird, both as stars themselves, their formation routes, how they got to be where they are, but also as brilliant places to study really strange physics. So that's both kind of the nature of ultra-dense matter that we find in the cores of neutron stars, far, far denser than we can create in laboratories on Earth, and in very unusual conditions where we can create very strange states of matter. And also in terms of things like their extremely strong magnetic fields, they see their potential to test theories of strong gravity as well. So these are just fascinating physics objects as well as really, really interesting astrophysical objects.
Thank you so much. This is exactly why I also love neutron stars. So, Anna, a little bit about your career path. So I know that you had a very interesting journey. You started with a PhD in 2004 at the Group for General Relativity and Gravitation, right, at the University of Southampton. And you were under the supervision of Professor Niels Anderson, working on the dynamics of differentially rotating neutron stars. Following this, you have been a National Research Council resident research associate at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. You were also a postdoc at Max Planck Institute in Garching and a postdoc at the University of Amsterdam. And I think ever since you have been associated with the University of Amsterdam, right? So you had a Dutch Research Council grant. You had several ERC starting grant. I think you already have one in 2015, and then you currently have another one, the ERC Consolidator grant, right? So this is amazing. So maybe you want to say something about your rich experience of working across borders in many countries and continents, and has it been easy? Has it been difficult? What do you feel about it?
Primarily, it's just not ended up as I would have expected it to. I went to university to study physics at Oxford, fully expecting that I wanted to do astronomy. That was my anticipated career path. And then I did the astronomy course at Oxford, and I didn't find it that interesting. So that was a bit of a surprise. So I then I kind of left science. I went to work for the government for 5 years in the UK. I worked as a civil servant. And over that time, I realized I was missing science and physics. So I started to look around for the idea of going to graduate school, doing a PhD, and indeed ended up basically leaving my job, going to do a PhD in applied mathematics in the relativity group at the University of Southampton. And I think the one thing is that having that time let me realize that perhaps I was brave enough to try a more theoretical oriented project than I think I would have tried straight out of my bachelor degree. Mm-hmm. I took on a very theoretical fluid dynamics oscillations of neutron star project. Great supervisor, great group, really supportive. and really enjoyed that. And that was all aimed at potentially computing gravitational wave signatures from newborn neutron stars. And indeed, my PhD thesis from end of 2003, beginning 2004, says gravitational wave detections are imminent. And then when I came to do postdoc, I really wanted to go to the US. I was quite keen to go and live over there and kind of experience the astronomy community there. So I applied for several fellowships, ended up going to NASA Goddard, basically in Washington, DC, very different city. I mean, fascinating place to live, very different working culture, but superb city, great museums, great food, all the rest. And there I broadened more into the direction of X-ray astronomy. Again, having a fellowship, I was quite lucky because I could take a little bit my own direction as to what I wanted to work on, which was great. And then kind of ended up walking this kind of funny path between X-ray astrophysics theory, a bit more nuclear physics, and very much away from the gravitational wave side of things, which is what I continued doing when I moved then back to Germany, which is partly also a domestic move because my entire time in the US, my partner now, my husband, was actually still back in Europe. So that was a kind of a challenge for a couple of years as well. And at least in Germany, we could live in the same country. And then, ended up moving to Amsterdam thinking it would be, another postdoc and then try and find a faculty position back in the UK. And we never left. And we've been here ever since, basically.
So, because I see that like all these things that you have learned during your PhD and postdoc, like X-ray astronomy and your association with NASA, so everything kind of added up to the nicer mission that you are so proud of today.
It did, and it's been pulling all these things together, and I do find it really nice now to be working back with gravitational wave scientists on what we're all learning collectively about the interior of neutron stars. So indeed, everything's kind of come a little bit full circle. Right. So I think I've taken a rather unusual path in terms of having multiple kind of different, quite disparate projects. But on the other hand, I think for the kind of science that we are doing, right, and that you are doing as well, where you have to pull together, relativity, nuclear physics, theory, observation, multi-messenger, that breadth of experience really counts, actually. And I'm really glad I've been able to get it.
I totally agree. This is amazing. So where do you see gravitational wave science in the next 10 years? This is like advancing in leaps and bounds. So I want to know, like, what do you feel about it?
Okay, well, you guys are our competition, right? Slightly, which I'm not really allowed to say. Okay, so you're kind of competition, but also we're extremely complementary. And so I think the one brilliant thing, I'm expecting lots and lots more tidal deformability measurements, basically, and lots more equation of state constraints for neutron stars and the nature of dense matter to come from the gravitational wave community. Okay, so that's what we're all hoping for, is lots and lots more measurements. And then what I'm also then really hoping is that we get enough measurements basically from gravitational waves, and then also from the X-ray side of things, that we can actually sit both and compare the two techniques together, just independently. Are we all getting the same answers? Because that would lay to rest a lot of potential worries about systematic errors and modeling errors and so on, if both types of technique give the same answer. Once we've kind of got that settled and we're confident in that, then we've got a really powerful position because we can actually combine everything. Because it could well be that the types of neutron stars that LIGO basically are looking at are slightly different populations to the ones that we're looking at basically in the X-ray. And so we get a much broader survey of different masses, basically in different evolutionary histories by putting them all together. So I'm hoping that you folks will generate lots of cool results, basically, that we can look at and compare and combine with ours as well.
Exactly. I think these are like two frontiers which are coming together and bringing so much exciting physics. So I'm really excited about it too.
It is. And we have this funny thing. I remember ages ago when we were starting to make plans for the next generation of large X-ray telescopes. People saying, you'll never get it because LIGO will do this. And it's like, but we both need to do it. It's not just one or the other. You have to have both methods working together to be confident that you're getting the right answers.
I agree. So actually that brings me to my next question. So given the success of the NICER mission, so what are your coming plans?
Right. NICER is just getting started. So I think the one thing, it took us a long time. NICER was launched in 2017, and we didn't publish our first results basically until 2019. Right. And it's taken us, a long time to work through some of the kinks in the technique, basically to run the analysis essentially that we're doing, and to get through that entire procedure. We've now published results for a couple of stars. We're still refining our analysis techniques. That's clear. We've got other stars for which we have large data sets for which we're doing analysis. Indeed, I'm actually looking at the screen right now at preliminary results for another neutron star. So basically, we have new results coming. We're going to be refining and updating the results that we've already published because we have more data already on those things. So I think NICER, I hope, is going to deliver, 5 or 6 mass radius measurements basically for different neutron stars. And they will all hopefully be a little bit tighter than the results that we published so far.
With every new publication, NICER is just creating more and more excitement for like the entire neutron star community and gravitational wave science community. So I'm really looking forward to these results. So do you have follow-up plans for building some other space missions like NICER?
Yeah, so the one, again, beautiful thing about NICER is it's trailblazing in terms of the technique that we're using. So the technique that we use is called pulse profile modeling. Right. What we do is we utilize the fact that radiation coming from the surface, so X-rays in general, coming from the surface of neutron stars has to propagate towards us basically through the space-time, which is set by the mass and radius of the star. And we need the mass and radius then to figure out what the star is made of. So basically this technique and the way that we do the relativistic ray tracing and so on, showing that we can use that, we can extract mass and radius, and also various other interesting things about the star. NICER has shown us that that's possible because it's the first time we've tried to apply this to a really high quality data set. Right. So that then sets the stage to apply it to other types of neutron star that also have X-ray emitting hotspots. And the biggest thing we want to try and apply it to are accreting neutron stars. They tend to spin a little bit faster than even the kind of 200 Hz pulsars basically that NICER is looking at. Faster the spin, the larger some of the relativistic effects that we use basically to disentangle the radius. So there's kind of a real bonus to being able to attack these 400, 500 Hz pulsars as well. And some of the accreting stars, again, if we can apply this technique to them, there are also lots of cross-checks on the technique that we can then apply as well. So again, it helps to get rid of systematic errors. And again, we know, 20-odd stars that should have hotspots basically, due to accretion, basically in the X-ray that we'd like to apply this to. That means a slightly different type of telescope. You need to go to higher photon energies than NICER can do, and you need to collect more photons. You need bigger area. So you have to look then at a free-flying space telescope, ideally several square meters of collecting area. So basically, a next generation large area hard X-ray telescope. So we're making plans that, as you said, there's prospects in the United States with the Strobex concept. Also good prospects basically being led by China with European collaboration for EXCP, that we are hoping over the next decade to have such a mission basically in free flight.
So like a NICER 2.
It will be
sequel to the NICER.
Plus RXTE, basically mega detector. And interestingly, the detectors that we use actually draw on particle physics, so things from the Alice experiments as well. Basically, so we actually bring in the particle physics another way with the detector technology that's being used as well. And the idea then would be we can make mass radius measurements using this technique perhaps for 20 stars and bringing those error circles much, much smaller as well.
Excellent. I was totally looking forward to it.
Yeah, they're in, EXCP in particular is in its development phases at the moment, but we still don't have a firm launch date or a firm launch slot. So that's the real push now. We've proven the technique works with NICER. Now to really make the case to make sure we have a place on a rocket.
Sure. Excellent. So, Anna, so in 2021, you were given the Mid-Career Prize from the American Astronomical Society, the High Energy Astrophysics Division. So you are a huge inspiration for women in gravitational wave science. So what would be your message to those girls who are just starting off in this field?
There are so many things I would want to say. I think it's enjoy it. This is, the stuff that we do is and should always be fun. And sometimes, there are aspects of the academic career, particularly sometimes, being a minority in science, it takes away some of the fun occasionally. And it's always good when that happens. When your teaching load gets high, you're exasperated and fed up, and a male colleague has just explained all your research back to you, to just walk back, sit down, cup of tea, and just think, but this is, I'm looking at the stars every day and I'm figuring out amazing things about the universe, and trust your instinct basically on which projects to take in. Find good people to work with as well would be my other piece of advice. Life is far too short for annoying collaborators. find good people that you like and work with them, and you'll have so much more fun basically doing it, and you'll produce better science as a result.
Excellent piece of advice there. So Anna, another thing I wanted to ask you, so you are a super mom. So how do you manage to balance your professional and personal life?
I kind of feel I should ask my kids to come up and comment on this, because they're currently getting extra Nintendo Switch time so that I can talk without them walking in. It's maybe not entirely super mom. It was really difficult. I mean, particularly when they were little, basically, and again, you're tired, you haven't slept, you've got 2 small children running around, that was rough. And so I think one thing that made a huge difference is I got a lot of help, basically from a coach, basically, and from senior female colleagues who spotted that I was struggling basically to manage everything. And I got into this kind of postdoc mindset that I was just going to work all the time and try and cram things in around the kids, and I was not getting enough sleep or enough rest. And I was lucky to have someone spot that and say, you need to restructure the way you live and work to make this possible. And I had a fantastic coach that I worked with for about a year, restructuring the way I plan my work so that, I take on things I like, I make the space and time for them. And I'm not by no means perfect at this, and I fit my family very firmly into my schedule as well. And I am now at the stage where, most of the time, I don't work weekends. Occasionally you have to, but very much not, or evenings. I tried to structure my work through the working day to fit it in and not take on things that I don't enjoy doing or don't have to do to keep that balance as well. And so it is, I guess what I would say is it is possible to do it, but I had to have a lot of help in order to get to that stage. So I think, if you're finding the work-life balance tricky, you're not alone. I think everyone just about goes through this, but find a network and find people who can help and support you and advise you in changes to make. Because this academic career path was not designed with moms in mind, but it can be adapted to make it possible. And I made it through being able to have some part-time working when my kids were little. Basically, I had a day or half a day at home every week, basically just spending time with my children. And I would say in the end, did it make a difference to my success on my career path? Actually, I'm not sure it did, because I focused in very much on the things that I actually wanted to do and needed to do instead.
Actually, this is what I also wanted to ask you. So how has COVID affected your research life? So is it become difficult? Did it become easier? I think it's probably both. I don't know.
Yeah, so COVID, research team-wise, there was always going to be a hit to the research team because you can't be in a room together. And I really miss, I have a wonderful research group, basically fantastic PhD students, postdocs, collaborators, and not being able to get together with them, every day in the offices, that's been a real impact. And I think for the PhD students in particular who've started during this, it is so tough, basically, to try and do research when you're not able to just wander in and out and chat to people. That would have had an impact anyway. For me personally, I started as program director for our bachelor degree in physics and astronomy about 6 months before COVID started. So I was already on quite a steep learning curve. And then suddenly March 2020, we're all online. The degree program with several hundred students suddenly has to be run online with a switch being made in a week. So that was quite the baptism of fire in the job. And I will say a lot of research simply just got put to one side, basically for a few months. So for my research group, again, that was not great because I just wasn't available, purely just to keep the education program up and running because we were all trying to figure out how to do it. But again, I'm very lucky. I've got a brilliant education team who are super lovely people, basically, who helped me to pull through it. And I think we've now got back to a stage where we've seen everything now. And the research is getting going again, and we're starting to see each other in the office again. So it's improving, but it was chaos for a few months.
I understand. I think we are all going through the crisis, but it's amazing that you've done such a great job even through the COVID crisis. So
you want to see my bill for tea purchasing, which has gone through the roof, basically, in the last few months.
All right. So Anna, I would ask you one last question. So it's not very typical for women to be in this kind of a field. So who or what was your inspiration?
Oh, so I have some, again, I picked up a poster and a book when I was in sixth form. Basically, Heather Cooper, who was she was a popularizer of science, basically astronomy in the UK. I picked up some of her books, basically, and that was the thing that really got me thinking about the idea of doing astronomy and space science. This might be something fun. And I have to say, I was swayed by all the pretty pictures, basically, that astronomers tend to produce. But in terms of there being, one person who kind of got me into science, there really wasn't. But now, basically, when I look around, the people who keep me going in science sort of are the kind of, the senior colleagues who really are around us making a difference. I mean, people like Jocelyn Bell, who is just, she's a heroine. Basically, she's also such an incredibly lovely person as well, showing that you can be a brilliant scientist and a great person. And indeed, I think in the neutron star community, we're very lucky to have a bunch of, very senior, very wonderful women around.
Right.
Basically, who help to make the environment a lot better for all of us. And I will also say I've also been very lucky to have incredibly supportive senior male colleagues as well, who've pushed me forward for opportunities that I would never have put myself forward for. And indeed, the reason I ended up being involved in NICER and EXTP and Strobex and all these things is down to Michiel van der Klees in Amsterdam, who basically pulled me aside and said, you can do this. You can take these working groups and lead them. I'm going to put your name in.
Well,
basically, and to have someone senior, again, great scientist, someone who really takes the time to understand it, but also takes the time to care about people, that's the kind of role model basically that I want to see, and that's the kind of role model I'd like to be.
Wow, excellent. And I also see quite often that how much big role science popularization and science outreach does to kids. Like a lot of the scientists I have met and interviewed, they have actually told me that some book or some poster or even an illustration actually inspired them to be a scientist. So I myself, I'm involved a lot in outreach, and I see often that you are as well. So you have been involved in a lot of outreach programs, which are really excellent. And your colloquia are really the best. I mean, I enjoy them so much. Yeah, they are like so lucid and exciting. I think you just totally express your passion for science through them.
Thank you. I mean, going out and talking to kids or giving talks. So again, it's such good fun. And again, it also just refreshes you that, this is why we do it. Right. The day-to-day mechanics of hitting your head against a laptop because your code's not working, walking out of that and saying, I'm going to just explain to someone what it is that I do and why I do it. So that love for it always stays in the background. And if we can get kids interested in science and things along the way, that's brilliant.
Right. So this was amazing talking to you, Anna. So I hope the listeners enjoyed very much listening to Anna Watts. We will have many other interesting guests on the LIGO-India podcast in the upcoming episode. So thanking you and signing off. This is Devi.
Thank you very much for having me.